Hello, everyone, and welcome into School Talk on 98.5 WJHI LP Jeffersonville, home of the Red Devil Network. This is our second School Talk of the week. Earlier this week, we had in Coach Erica Hurd, the first female coach in the history of Jeffersonville football. But whenever we have a chance to bring in our superintendent, we make some adjustments and bring him in. So happy to have back our superintendent of Greater Clark County Schools, Mr. Mark Laughner. How are we today, sir?
Great. Thanks for having me back.
Well, let's get right into it. I know for you, you've had a lot of changes here in the last couple weeks, and the biggest one coming out yesterday, the calendar change. Talk a little bit about some of the updates to the first semester calendar, what's going to be different, and what led to those decisions.
Yeah, one of the things that we're learning as we go through this, we're 3.5 weeks into the school year. We've had to shut down, a couple schools, Jeff High here, this week, and then that first week of school, and then Pleasant Ridge. Is that it's really not the positive cases that are creating the issues. It's the quarantining of staff. And you get to a point where your staff level gets stressed a little bit, and you can't staff your building the way they should. So that's what's shut the schools down so far. And we wanted to find a way to manage that a little better. How could we build in some breaks that would do two things? Number one, manage the quarantining of our staff, but also provide some time for some professional development for our teachers in regards to virtual teaching and just how to do that component of our delivery method of instruction. So, we made some adjustments. We announced that yesterday. As most of you know, on September 4th and 8th, those were already e-learning days, that Friday before Labor Day and the Tuesday after Labor Day. And we went ahead and made the other 3 days that week, September 9th, 10th, and 11th, e-learning days for the whole corporation. That'll help us manage the quarantining issue, and make sure that we have staff for our buildings. We also, to be frank and honest with you, we realize some people will be watching the Derby. We realize people will be out doing some things over that Labor Day weekend, and that also gives us a little quarantine time there at the end of that week and the weekend before students return that following Monday. So we thought it was important to do that too, because we want to keep our staff and students safe. And then the other issue is from fall break to Thanksgiving break, November 20th, there's a 5-week period there where we felt like it was going to be pretty tough to maintain the staff that we needed in terms of staffing levels for each school for that 5 weeks. So we went ahead and built in a week of e-learning that first week of November, except for Election Day. November 3rd is a teacher-only day. There's no e-learning, but the rest of that week, the first week of November, will be e-learning. And the reason we're doing this is we feel like those breaks built in, it allows us to do professional development. It also allows us to do a little quarantining of students and staff, and hopefully, that we'll be able to manage this situation. Really, it's an attempt at trying to be proactive as we go through the school year and manage this whole situation.
To address something at the start here, I know for you there was a lot of heat last week out of the school board meeting when people saw quarantine numbers being high, and I think a lot of people, just in the way things are today with social media and how people react to the news, they see quarantine numbers and they think COVID numbers. We've stayed pretty solid as a school district, I know, keeping COVID tests down as a positive number, and I thought that was something you might want to address, that, hey, when you see a number out there when it says quarantine number, that doesn't mean the same thing as COVID numbers. It's just a precautionary measure.
Yes. The data I shared with the board about a week and a half ago, so it's a week and a half old data, that was quarantine information. Basically at that time, week and a half ago, about 4% of our staff was being quarantined, and it was about 4% of our students were being quarantined, which we feel like that's a pretty good number, and quarantine doesn't mean a staff member is positive or a student is positive. It just means they have to be out for 14 days because they were potentially exposed to a positive, whether it was inside school or outside school. So we feel good about that. Now it does, like I said, stress our staffing levels at certain schools, and we have to monitor that very closely in terms of what's going on at each individual school, how many staff are quarantined, how many students are quarantined, and we'll continue to monitor that. When you look at the actual positive cases in our district, and Dr. Yazel shared this data out, In terms of the Clark County Health Department, and this is a week and a half old data that, and I talked to him, he put this out in social media that I think there were 17 students or positive cases that in Greater Clark, but he felt like after doing the contact tracing that only 2 of those 17 were actually generated within our schools. The other 15 probably, contracted the virus outside of the school environment. So, we feel good about that. And that tells us that our students are doing a good job wearing masks, social distancing. Our staff is doing a good job of cleaning their classrooms, cleaning the touch points, and and managing the situation.
I know when we first started the year, you talked about, hey, there's going to be stoppages in the season, for the school year, and we may, take this school down this week, because for Jeffersonville example, they're not in and they're on virtual learning. For you, when people talk about, hey, why not just cancel the whole school system down for the week? Why just Jeffersonville? Talk about how important it is for you and the school board and also the administrative cabinet to get in as many days in as many buildings as possible. I know it's difficult to balance all the different schools and trying to keep schedules on the same pace, but if you keep open as many schools as you can, obviously it's a big benefit for the school system. I know people are different around the nation. They just kind of do the blanket shutdown. Why have you guys chosen to say, hey, let's just shut down this individual school, but let's keep the rest open and going?
Well, I think two reasons. Number one, you have the academic reason that there's nothing like in-person instruction, frankly. Students to be in a school in front of their teacher learning, that's the best method, delivery method. And so it's been very important for us to provide that option for our parents and keep the schools open as much as we possibly can. And the other thing is just the social emotional piece. Our students, some of them, they need to be in school. They want to be in school. The social emotional piece of that is very important to them and their growth. And so we wanted to provide the option for them to be in school. And the academic piece, the social emotional piece, it's important to myself, the school board, and also our executive cabinet and our principals that we try to stay open, and we'll manage this building by building. And the other piece, obviously we play as a school district an important role in this community and the economy and what goes on in this community, so I think from that perspective, it's important for us to stay open too, as much as we possibly can.
Here with Mark Laughner on School Talk, recording on August the 21st, talking a little about the school calendar updates and some more information regarding Greater Clark County schools. Something positive to look at outside of the day-to-day education of students. Tonight, you're going to have the start of the football season, which, to be honest, from somebody that works in athletics, I think that's a huge win for the high school level, able to have Jeffersonville at Floyd Central tonight, then Charlestown playing Silver Creek. Seems to be all good to go at the moment. It's a big win, I know, for you guys here at Greater Clark County Schools and for all of us in Greater Clark County Schools that the football season is going to get off. Plans, I know it's kind of be taken week to week, but overall it seems to be things in a good direction for sports.
Yes, and once again, it'll be one of those situations where we're going to have to manage it as we go through the season. There may be weeks where teams can't play because of quarantining, but we're excited about the fact that our teams get to play. Our coaches, volleyball, football, cross country, tennis, they've done a great job of managing this and making sure students are staying social distancing and wearing masks when they're not actually physically competing. And I think you've seen that with our numbers. We haven't had to quarantine a lot of athletes, in Greater Clark, and that's a good thing. So I'm excited to see what happens. We know there's going to be times where we have to manage our way through some of this. There's already been schools, throughout the state of Indiana that aren't going to play tonight. They're not going to be able to play their first football game tonight because, they've had a lot of players have to quarantine, so they've had to cough this first week. So, and I think that's what you're going to see as you go through the fall. But we're hopeful that our teams in Greater Clark can play each and every week and get through it safely.
For the facility side of it, you look at Franklin Square a couple weeks ago, that project finally done and ready to roll. That's been obviously a huge success, opening up at the elementary downtown Jeffersonville. Back to the football side, facilities, it looks for Jeffersonville and Charlestown 99.99% ready to go there. Talk a little bit about the new stadium amenities. I know both these teams on the road the first couple weeks, but it should be a great time for fans if, everything's up and going still to go out and check out the new Jeff and Charlestown football stadiums.
Absolutely. That's actually been a good thing that our teams are on the road. It gives us a little more time to get things completed. The weather has slowed us down a little bit on those projects, and also COVID, frankly. I mean, early on we had a problem with getting materials, and some of the companies that supply bleachers and things like that, they were slowed down because of COVID. So the facilities are looking fantastic. I would ask the community to, take a drive by Jeff High, Charlestown High, see what the fields look like. They just look fantastic, and be really nice for our student athletes. And actually, Jeff High, I think we're signing off on their turf football field early next week. So they should be able to start practicing on their turf football field next week, so that'll be great.
To go with that, I know the IHSA and KHSA obviously work in two different manners, but when you talk to Chad Gilbert, who's up there with the IHSA, the Charlestown Athletic Director, how much do you all confer back and forth? I think people see, the Kentuckiana area, you think of JCPS, you think of Greater Clark and some other school systems. How much do you confer back and forth, whether it's athletics or academics, with school systems around the area on, hey, we're doing this, you're doing this, what do you think's a good idea? How much of that conferring do you guys do back and forth?
Quite a bit, especially early on before the year started. I was talking to superintendents every day, and just bouncing ideas off them, finding out, what they're going to do and how they're going to handle certain situations. And we're still talking. We have different Superintendent Association Zoom meetings where we talk about a variety of things, whether it's, when you go to e-learning, do you make teachers report or not report to the buildings? Actually, most superintendents have told us that they're making their teachers report to the buildings during e-learning weeks and things of that nature. So, we're bouncing ideas off each other quite a bit. In regards to IHSAA, I talk to Chad Gilbert quite often about, what direction is the IHSAA heading, and just so we know, and especially this attendance thing. What's the attendance? What are we allowed to do attendance-wise at events? So we're constantly communicating to figure out what our next steps are.
And when you look at the communication around the community, I think one big thing that certainly stood out about us starting back on time and early, and also being able to stay in person most of the weeks at all the schools, how much has that helped for you all bringing in kids from other school districts? I know it's a big advantage if you can recruit and find ways to, up your enrollment. It helps with tuition dollars and funding for the school system. Even being around here in Jeffersonville, I've noticed some new kids coming in from different school areas. Have you been able to add some positive additions in that space, bring in different kids from other areas?
Yes, we have. I think it's a combination of a lot of things. Number one, our planning for this. I think people have seen that we're trying to do this the right way and trying to provide our students a good education, and also still keep extracurricular activities open too. So I think people see that. I think the facilities have played a role in that too. That people see that we're making a commitment, to our facilities to update things, make it more modern, make it look nice, and that's what people want. Student athletes especially. So I think. People are seeing that in Greater Clark we're trying to do things the right way. We have a lot of good programs in place, and you can get a very high-quality education in this district.
As a superintendent, I try to talk to all the administrators and coaches and people in leadership roles around here. What's the one thing, I know talking with our principal, Pam Hall, and some of the other people, what's the one thing that when you look at this time and what we're dealing with in COVID and all the changes that come week to week, what's the one thing that, I know safety is obviously the number one concern, but what's the one thing from a school standpoint that keeps you up and go, okay, we need to make sure we get this right, this right? I know staff members is something that certainly has popped up as a challenge, probably more than you thought at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, that's the big one, is you never know what the next day is going to bring in terms of potential positive cases, or how many staff have to be quarantined, and how are we going to manage that? And that takes up a lot of our time, whether it's my time or our executive cabinet. And so that's been a big adjustment. It's hard to plan for the future in terms of being visionary and, global thinking in terms of what you want to do with the school district when you're just trying to manage day to day, week to week. to make it through that. But that's where we're at. And we sort of knew that starting the year that's probably where we'd be at most of the year, just trying to manage our way through this and provide the best academics we can to our students.
Quickly, I know we have just a few more questions here. I know you have to run. Is there been any changes? I know at the start of the year we talked a little bit about the procedures from the school bus of checking temperatures to walking in through the same door and having the hand sanitizer stations. Is there any new recommendations for PPE from Dr. Yazel, or is everything you guys believe that you're doing still the right way to go and everything's on track when it comes to sanitation and things of that nature?
Yeah, we feel like we're handling things pretty well. We are we're cleaning our buildings. We have an outside vendor that comes in and sprays our buildings. We're actually we have our electrostatic sprayers that will come in soon that we'll have ourselves to where we can go out and clean buildings or spray them, disinfect also. So we feel good about where we're at in that regard. Our intention is to keep moving forward. We're going to keep pushing forward. We realize we're going to have to manage some pieces as we go through the school year. I think that's one of the reasons we changed the calendar, to try to manage that. And we're looking at the second semester calendar already and really looking at, all right, how do we manage the second semester? How do we make it through the second semester, while knowing that we are going to have some positive cases. We are going to have to quarantine staff and students. So how do we build a second semester calendar to where we can do as much in-person instruction as we possibly can, but still keep everybody safe and provide strong academics.
Big thing to go with the PPE is, I saw earlier this week, big donation from Amazon, 10,000 face shields. What did that mean to the school district, and how were you able to pull off that partnership? That's big time.
Well, that was a great donation by Amazon. Actually, they called me early last week, and it happened to be the same day we were talking about purchasing 1,000 face shields because we started the year with about 750 for our staff that wanted them, but then we had more staff that wanted them, and also some students that were asking about them. So we were getting ready to purchase 1,000.
Well, that's a good negotiation. There you go from 1,000 purchased, 10,000 donated.
Yeah, so the timing was great. They happened to call and say, "Hey, we want to donate 10,000 face shields to you, and worth $25,000." So it worked out great. We really appreciate Amazon and what their partnership with Greater Clark. Last year, they donated $20,000. Towards our STEM programming and the VEX robotics and things of that nature within STEM. So we're thankful that they're helping out Greater Clark.
Last thing, I'll let you wrap it up here. Message to the community, anything you want to update with in terms of, trying to put out a message of things for people to, I know we've talked about every topic here today, but anything you wanted to add?
No, just stay tuned. I mean, like I said, there's going to be things happen in terms of positive cases here and there. There's going to be quarantining. There may be situations where we have to shut down buildings in the future. And just I would ask our parents to work with us. We understand that that's not the ideal situation, especially if you have younger children, to have your school shut down for a week and now you got to find somewhere for your child to be for that week, and now you have to do e-learning. We understand that, but we're trying to manage a lot of different things, keep people safe, still provide in-person instruction as much as we can, and just work with us. We're all working together with this, and we hope that our parents understand that.
Well, I appreciate you coming in, Mr. Laughner. I know your schedule's pretty much packed to the gills at the moment, but we appreciate you coming in on School Talk, and I look forward to having you back in.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That is Mark Laughner, our superintendent of Greater Clark County Schools, here with you today on August the 21st on School Talk. If you would like to watch the replay of School Talk, you can tune in at 1 and 7 p.m. every day on the Red Devil Network. That's on TV Cable 184. If you want to listen, it's on 98.5 FM and streaming on WJHI.com. And then adding in the wrinkle that we had the last couple weeks, all the shows going forward will be on YouTube on the Red Devil Network. So if you want to check in and you're out of the area, you can watch it online as well. For Mark Laughner, I am Clay Abel saying so long here on School Talk. Thank you for tuning in on 98.5 WJHI, LP Jeffersonville, home of the Red Devil Network.